Suddenly, my wife doesn't love me. A man is shocked by his wife, who out of nowhere no longer loves him. Will they be able to work it out? Or is it far too late? Find out in today's episode of Coach Ben's Case by Case. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? Thought we built a perfect relationship. My wife of 10 years, 12 years together, so he's 41 and she's 37, out of the blue decided she wasn't in love anymore and wants to YOLO, which means you only live once, it. So what that means is she desires something else, probably more excitement in her life. We'll find out. You only live once means do whatever you can today because you don't know if tomorrow's coming. That sort of mentality. Let's see what he means. She is moving out next month. Wow. I mean, imagine 12 years together and suddenly your wife says, hey, I'm moving out next month. Can't do this anymore. That must feel extremely bad. This is really sad already, right off the bat. We have a 3-year-old boy. Now that's even worse. So they have a 3-year-old child. And she's like, nope, I'm done. Where to go from here? What am I overlooking? Well, let's see if he's overlooking anything. This is what we do on Case by Case. Background. We own a house and a car. Income is jointly $200,000, so money's not a problem. Split more or less equally. Very nice. Expenses are divided equally. Fair. We both have master's degrees. Okay. So I can't imagine why they can't work this out. Let's see why they can't work this out. This is crazy already. Political and ethical values are almost exactly aligned across all subjects. Wow. We have a normal social circle with regular interactions, weekly brunches, sports watching, game nights, etc. So everything sounds great. We just have to know why did she all of a sudden say, I want to move out next month with a child, a 3-year-old child. Let's go ahead and proceed, shall we? That's horrible. I mean, I haven't had a case like this where everything seems to go fantastic and all of a sudden wife wants to bail out. I am on great terms with her family. Her mother and brother visit 3 to 4 times a year and stay with us. My parents visit 5 to 6 times a year and stay with us as well. As far as I can tell, she is on good terms with them as well. Wow. So it's not that. Nothing to do with that. Both of our parents and relatives are extremely supportive and friendly. Life has been on basically easy mode for the last 5 years, which is ironically one of her complaints. Okay, here we go. Let's get into her mind, right? We are just coasting. That's what she says. Okay, so maybe mediocrity. That is a killer. But what is mediocre about your relationship? And what's so mediocre to where she's going to just up and leave her son and you? We are doing great financially. You've mentioned that. Maxing out 401k and savings for our kids' education. We are both calm and rational. Okay, sound like good parents, but why is she ready to not really be a good parent at this point, right? Now, just because you have kids doesn't mean you have to stay together. I just am curious to see what was so bad for her to decide to leave, right? Fight frequency is around 3 times per year. Well, he's got it calculated. Very minimal fighting. Fighting shouldn't even happen. Well, they're at 12-year mark. Perfect synchronicity, 10 years max, but many couples still fight, even 20 years in. It's a maturity thing. So, okay, that's pretty low. I hope they're not really bad fights. And manifests itself as us just taking time and space apart for a few days, and everything goes back to normal. Okay, well, we need to get into those arguments. Because you're saying per year. There is a problem there. I know it sounds low, but it depends. What are you arguing for? And you need a few days apart from each other? That sounds pretty extreme. He's not mentioning it so far. We need to know what they're arguing about. We don't need to know every little detail, but just the gist. I hope he does explain more about that. There is no yelling. Okay, so if there's no yelling, why do you guys have to have space apart for a few days? I can understand maybe a night. Maybe you guys are just too tired or you're in a bad mood, but a few days. I think that has a lot to do with why she wants to get up and leave out of the marriage. Or physical violence or any discomfort. Well, it is discomfort if you guys have to have a few days apart from each other as a married couple for 12 years. It's more of a, I need some space to myself right now. Well, that's what I put in my book, Personal Space. Every couple needs it. It's not necessarily a break from each other, but it is. Not in a bad way. But you do need some time for personal development, because then when you're done with that, it could be like an hour a day or 30 minutes a day, whatever it is. It depends on you guys. You guys decide how much time for personal space. Maybe you go hang out with your friends and she goes hang out with their friends. I advise something more hobby related so that you guys aren't away from each other for a long period of time, because work already does that as it is, unless you guys work together as a couple, which is rare. But that's also what I put in my book as far as the ideal scenario, working together. But there's a lot more to say about that. But so far we have no idea other than no yelling or violence or any discomfort. But there is discomfort, because why do you need personal space for a few days? So something's really boiling. Let's go ahead and proceed. Really strange. Last month my wife announced she is leaving next month. Okay. This came as a complete shock to me. At first I thought it was a joke. I don't think she would be joking about that. Then an attempt to get me to do something. Then the realization she was serious. I have attempted everything I can think of to find an avenue of moving forward together, but all has fallen on deaf ears. Okay, so she's not answering you? That's really bad. I mean, why is she giving you the silent treatment? Which is a form of abuse, by the way. Every couple needs to speak up. There's no excuse. And that's just the end of that. I offered counseling, taking time apart, but that's what you guys were doing, taking time apart. Seeing other people romantically. No. That's horrible. That means that it's over. Open-end relationships are failed relationships. It's not going to work. And even if it does, it's going to fail again. That's not a relationship. Oh, let's just agree to cheat on each other. What? I already talked about that for many times on this channel. A period of focusing on treating each other with special care and affection, etc. Okay, so he's providing solutions, although some of that is just absolute garbage. But he's desperate. Everything has been dismissed without any thought. Furthermore, I'm not getting a further explanation than I'm not in love anymore. Okay, so there you go. Now we have to dissect that part. Why is she saying she's not in love with you anymore? I hope he really gives us some clues. Otherwise, we're left in the dark. Okay, now admittedly, the intensity of the romantic feelings have declined. There you go. Why are the romantic feelings declining? But I thought this was just the natural cycle of being married. Wrong. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, as close as we can so far. Wrong. Just because you're married doesn't mean that, the fire of passion dies with time because we're getting older. That's loserville. You want to be a couple of losers saying, well, we're getting old, honey. We can't do this anymore. That's how you die in this life. Wake up. Look what happens. This type of garbage here. This garbage situation where she's had enough. Now, this is him explaining the problems with the marriage. Why he's deciding to go to these great lengths to try to get her back. Maybe it's too little too late. Maybe this stuff is a lot worse than what he's putting it out to be. But it sounds like every time we go with case by case, we have to take it at face value. So if it is what it is, he's being very honest and not leaving anything more out of this. But I mean, she's leaving a son behind. But hey, if she's miserable and she can't take it anymore after 12 years being with him, for whatever reason, she says, I'm not in love anymore. That is a huge red flag, and I want to know why that red flag mysteriously popped up. Let's keep going, shall we? Still not quite enough. But why is she doesn't feel anymore in love with her husband? That we need to really answer that. Intense romantic attraction over time transforms into something more stable with age. See, this guy, just because that happens with a lot of couples doesn't mean that that's the norm. Now, the word normal means pattern. Yes, it could be a pattern with a lot of couples, but that's no reason for you to adopt that negative type of mentality that with age everything starts dying. Then what was the point of getting married in the first place? Riddle me that. You don't go into a job saying, well, maybe a few years from now I'm just going to start not doing my job, because I'm getting older. No, you do your job, right? Marriage is no different. You need to be 100% every single day, or as close to 100% as you can, physically, mentally, and emotionally. No excuses, right? Unless you have a legit excuse, but this is not an excuse. You know what they say, they say this. Yeah, they say a lot of things. This is your marriage, and it's time to save it if you can, right? A form of love where companionship, friendship, non-physical affection take an increasingly more prominent role as the relationship ages, and I was okay with it. No. Nobody should be okay with it, because it's precisely because of that non-physical affection part that she's not in love with you anymore. But let's keep proceeding, because he has already this negative mentality with the positive mentality. You can't have them both. It's positive or nothing. No hybrids. You can't be positive and negative. Oh, life is ups and downs. You want a roller coaster life like that, not knowing what's going to happen next? No, take control. Take life by the horns and say, my marriage will succeed because I'm checking off all the blocks, right? Until very recently, we still had a healthy sex life. Okay, let's see. Sometimes people have sex just to have sex. It doesn't mean anything. Body on body. There needs to be that emotional and spiritual connection, which is emotional, right? Mental and emotional connection. About 10 times per week. That's a lot of times per week. But how is the sex, right? I find her attractive, and it came as a complete shock when she announced, seemingly out of nowhere, that she wasn't sexually attracted to me anymore. Big surprise. Something is really lacking here. Can we blame her 100%? I don't know yet. But something really happened that shouldn't have happened. Why did she fall out of love with you and she's still having sex with you? 10 times per week? That's what you're saying? I'd say realistically, max 7 times per week is enough. Maybe 8 if you squeeze an extra time. But sex should be extremely passionate. At least enjoyable for both. If it's not quite your peak days, I understand. But this, saying, okay, it's one thing to have sex, but the quality of the sex, why is she falling out? Why did she tell you that she's no longer in love with you? Which is horrible. She needs to work it out. Or was she always trying to work it out with you? He's not giving up the goods here, if there are any goods. Look, if she just decided out of nowhere, just like he says, then she has all the problems and all the culpability. She's the guilty one here. But I have a feeling that, wives just don't automatically fall out of love. They try to work it out. Why is she being a mute to him? Why is she giving him the silent treatment? I'm not blaming the guy here. I'm just saying that something doesn't quite add up. So let's see if we proceed, if we actually get those answers to those missing questions, shall we? We had disagreements in the past about the sex frequency and settled on 2.5 hours per week whenever possible. I mean, who's counting? That's kind of odd right there. Oh, we made love for 2.4, 2.1 hours. I don't know. That's kind of strange. I mean, I understand how many times, but counting the hours? That's kind of odd, but let's keep going, okay? Whenever possible, of sexy time devoted entirely to us. At some point, she started making jokes about how my sexual drive is supposed to slow down at this point. Okay, so she doesn't want as much frequent sex then. She wants lower quantity of sex throughout the week. That's what I'm sensing here. But Did that go over good with you? Because you didn't explain what those arguments were about 3 times a year. Were they about this topic? Because maybe she had enough. That you want too much sex and she wants a little less sex. So maybe you're not forcing her, but when you make love to your wife and she's not really into it, because you said you had sex 10 times per week, right? That's a lot of times. You know, you have to respect your wife. If this is the case where you're pushing more sex and she's not really into that, she wants to slow things down, you need to respect that. You can't have sex with a wife who was someone who doesn't want that much, right? You guys have to work it out together on frequency, a realistic frequency that works for both of you. No man should ever make love to his wife or his girlfriend when she's not feeling it. That's borderline you know what. That's highly disrespectful and dishonorable. If this is the case, we don't know because obviously he's not going to tell us. Because then the culpability would fall solely on him. And I would totally excuse the wife for wanting to leave. Although it is really a sad story with the 3-year-old kid. But let's go ahead and proceed. Okay, at some point she started making jokes about how sex drives are supposedly... See, that's a problem. I have to go over that part. That's just a negative mentality to say, well, as we age, you know, we have less sex. That's how you die in this life. You have to keep it passionate. So, eating a healthy diet, proper nutrition, proper exercise, proper mentality, emotional health as well, that's going to keep your sex drive high. But if you start diminishing things and making an excuse for it, then yeah, it's going to go down. So, and then he says, at this point, and maybe I should find a younger woman to satisfy me. See, this is the problem. I'm starting to think that the guy is the problem in this case. He wants more sex. You already have 10 times per week. And if she's complaining about that, any guy, like even sexless marriages, you know, the worst of the worst, which is pretty much a living divorce while married. That's horrendous, sexless marriages. But they would love to have once a week at that. And you're complaining because... Well, you say, well, we have 10 times per week, and I don't know why she's falling out of love. And she's saying that, you know, I should slow down. And maybe she's already telling you, hey, just go get a younger woman because what you want, I'm not comfortable with. You need a younger woman who is horny all the time, which is not a bad thing. She's not feeling horny all the time. So something's really wrong here on your side. You're giving up the goods right now. This is the details that we needed. I thought this was just playful banter. No, it's not banter. She's being very dead serious. Not all women are the same when it comes to sexual frequency. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It just means that, hey, honey, I think this is too much sex, okay? And yes, she will fall out of love with you. You need to respect her preferences. Just like she were to respect yours. But you have to see that if you're enjoying the sex and she's not, why are you going to increase the frequency? 10 times is already too much. I'd say 7 times max, borderline 8. If you guys have a twice in a day scenario. But you both have to be in agreement. Let's go ahead and move on. I can see why now that she's fed up and she's had enough. It is my personal belief that a good relationship is based on the quality of the experiences people have together. Yes, obviously. Earlier in the relationship, we traveled all across the world. Okay, see, that's not the problem. Taking a month of vacation per year to exotic places. That's fantastic. We ran marathons together, played video games together, cooked together, did yoga together, etc. This is fantastic, but that's not the root of the problem. Everything else, see, it's not about money. It's not about power and influence and fame and, wow, we've done all these activities together. That's fantastic. That's fantastic, but that's not the problem, right? And this is what I tell people, especially men. You need to focus on your own sensuality and respect for your partner. Because if you go all gun-ho, macho, and my way or the highway, or because I wonder how those arguments took place. What was said? You weren't yelling at each other. But I bet it's about your preference to have lots of sex and she's not really feeling it. You need to respect her. This is what I'm feeling right now in this case. The nature of our experiences together was always overwhelmingly positive. When we decided to have kids, we came to an agreement that we'd stay together no matter what until they were 18. Yes, because you're doing it for the kid, but if it's an abusive relationship, you shouldn't, even if whether you have kids or not. This is a part of the reason I feel betrayed now. I realize it's a stupid thing to agree to, but it made sense at the time. Well, you're not betrayed. You're just shocked by her decision. But again, why did she make that decision, right? It sounds like you wanted too much sex and she wasn't feeling it. And yes, if you make love to a woman who's not feeling it or doesn't want that much sex, she's going to want a divorce. She's going to want to break up. Whether you have kids or not, whether life is great or not. The vacations no longer bring happiness. When you lack respect for a woman's preference according to sexual frequency. Now, hear me now, okay? I'm not saying that sexless marriages or having sex once a week or twice a week is okay. That's terrible. That means something's really wrong, unless work takes precedence. When you guys really love each other, you guys will make the time to have sex. I'd say 7 times a week, like once every day, is fantastic. Wow, perfect 10. But if you guys can only manage 3 times, 2 times, 1 time, as long as you guys are both comfortable with that, but there needs to be a lot of kissing and hugging whenever possible. I understand long distance scenarios and whatnot. Look, I understand. I'm just saying that the more sex, the better, but not to the point as in this case where the guy is wanting too much sex and she's not feeling it. Since she got pregnant, everything changed. Our relationship didn't just not take priority, it fell out of the top 10. Work, childcare, her personal hobbies, her extended family all of a sudden became more important. Well, yeah, because she's not feeling it anymore, the marriage, right? I was cognizant of this change and tried to implement special time for us alone together, but was met with lukewarm responses at best. Yeah, she's tuning out. She's tuning out. So she's trying to talk to other people about her problem with you, probably. She doesn't trust you anymore. So what broke the trust, right? You might have been too demanding in the sex department. That's what I'm thinking. She was dragging her feet on everything, making it seem that usual things like attending a friend's wedding was all of a sudden a great favor she was doing for everyone. Yeah, because she's not feeling it, right? I mean, that's between you guys. I'm focused on the main problem, which is the sex. I tried my best to suggest things for us to do together, but increasingly got rejected more and more. Fine. I thought this was just a phase. No, it doesn't sound like a phase. Well, we'll tough it out and recapture the magic as our kid gets older. That's what he was thinking. I should say that she has been acting depressed. Okay, why is she depressed? Not enjoying life. Why is she not enjoying life? Complaining about work more and more. Okay, it's time to change jobs. Or if that's easier said than done, maybe work less, part-time, or not work at all if that's possible. But these things have remedies. So if she's stressed about work, that's a typical scenario for the wife or the husband in a relationship, in a marriage. But yeah, that could have led to it too. She's had enough with a lot of things. Maybe the lifestyle is just not good anymore, no matter the big vacations, the money. It's all about emotions and mental emotional health. One complaint she had since our kid was born was lack of support in childcare. In the first 2 years, our child preferred the company of his mother. I thought this was normal. Yeah, it's typically normal and understandable. We tried multiple times for me to give him baths, get him dressed, but he would always start crying and ask for his mother. That can happen. That's fine. You got to forgive the kid. I mean, he's new to life itself. He doesn't even know his name. That's totally understandable, like you said. Since he became 3, he increasingly wants to spend time with me more and more. That's good. So he's getting to know you too. So while asking for more help, my wife refused offers for me to make school lunches, get him dressed for school, and walk him to school and back. I'm lost on how to proceed. Okay, that's quite a doozy right there. That's interesting. So he says, my wife refused offers from me to help out with their son. Their kid, as he said. You know, that's interesting. So that's kind of bad on her part. Sounds a little selfish. Especially since, but it makes sense also because I'm not justifying it, but when a mother is depressed, not liking life anymore, has problems with you, her husband, then of course she's going to give more attention to her kids, her family. This is what happens. And the same thing with husbands who have pretty much a bad situation with their wife is they tend to hang out with the boys more, go play hobbies, more, whatever it is, the hobby. They tend to escape. So this is our form of escape, is to say, no, I'm going to do everything. You just play the father role, right? It's not right, but I can understand why she's doing it. I'm not justifying it, but there's really bad problems here. I mean, for her to tell you that she no longer loves you, that's as bad as it gets. And there's no cheating involved. It's just you probably wanting too much sex. And she wasn't up for it. And, you're not going to mention whether you insisted or not because you said there was no yelling. Yeah, but why did you guys need 3 days of not seeing each other for personal space? That's horrendous. And you said that's typical. Okay, goal number 1. This is what he says at the very end. Goal number 1 is to discover and work towards a future in which we stay together as a family. Yeah, that's what everybody would want in any case. Okay, so he has a positive mindset, but he's probably horrendous in the sex department, right? Goal number 2. If goal number 1 is not possible, work towards the best possible future for our kid. So he does care a lot about his kid. He's a good father. And she's pretty much a good mother. Maybe she has a little bit of flaws, but the main problem is not their kid. It's not money. It's not, oh, they cheated on each other or some typical problem. The problem is the sex part, the frequency. That's exactly, without any proof, I strongly suspect that you're the problem. You're the cause of why she fell out in love with you. Why? What were those arguments like? What exactly were you guys arguing about? You didn't mention that. You didn't mention those specifics that we need because maybe you feel guilty. Maybe you want to put the blame on her. Well, I don't know. Suddenly she wants to leave me. Suddenly she doesn't love me anymore. These things don't happen like that. Unless she has somebody else in mind, which she likely doesn't because she has a kid with you. And everything's going great. Money's not a problem. Vacations aren't a problem. She has stress at her job. That could be solved. There's different remedies for that. But the main problem here is I don't think you were respecting the frequency of sex because she told you the little bits of evidence that you gave us, the solid gold nuggets there. You said that she says, well, why don't you go find a younger woman so that you guys can have more sex, right? That's a huge red flag right there on your side. Because what she's telling you translated is, honey, I don't agree with having too much sex during the week. Of course, that's her preference and you need to respect that. I'm going to have to rule in favor of the wife. Because obviously the husband is acting like, I don't know what happened. What do you mean you don't know what happened? Yeah, it doesn't sound right that she wants to leave you, but she's still going to be a mother to her child. Because she is a good mother. She wants to take care of the child. So I think it's your fault. The husband. The husband is culpable. I'm going to go with the husband on this one. That he's the one at fault. Because the frequency of sex was over the top. Every week? 10 times? Way too much, in my humble opinion. I respect couples who are okay with that. But obviously she was not okay with that. So you ruined your relationship. Sorry. The blame goes on you. I have to excuse the woman here. And she has a right to decide what she wants to do from that point onward. Because if the sex was so great, if it was so great, she wouldn't be thinking of leaving you or actually leaving you. Having a son, by the way. That's how she fell out of love with you. And it's strange, right? You would think that we have so much sex, we should be in love. Wrong. It doesn't matter how much sex you have. It's the quality of sex. I'm not talking about how strong your orgasms are. I'm saying that the connection, the bond mentally and emotionally, that bond, that connection, mental and emotional connection, that was what was lacking. And it sounds like you didn't care. As long as you got your orgasm, right? Because she's your wife. You should have been grateful. You should have said, okay, honey, whatever you want. You know what? Why don't we do it 3 times a week if you're comfortable with that? You should have worked it out with her. It sounded like you didn't. And you didn't mention that either. And I wonder why. I think you heavily disrespected her wishes. Even though it wasn't stated, and we have to take it by face value and Coach Ben's case by case, I strongly suspect that. In a relationship, making sure both partners check all the blocks and not just a several or a few is key to ensuring an everlasting, eternal relationship. Checking all the blocks, not leaving not one of them unchecked. A couple can have lots of money, lots of sex, and a busy life. But if something is missing, it must be talked about and fully fixed. And that was the problem in this case. The husband really dropped the ball. He had a perfect marriage going on, but he didn't respect his wife's wishes. And that's really sad because that's what those arguments were about. No doubt. The frequency of sex. He wanted too much, and she didn't want that much. And she fell out of love. With that said, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Coach Ben's Case by Case. Much love, everybody, and Merry Christmas.